Hi there everyone, my name's Dave West, I hope we're all doing well. So welcome back to the Ultimate Video Test, and today I'm checking out the RealMe 7. Now, as with all Ultimate Video Tests, I'll leave all of the main camera specifications down in the description, and I'll just run through some of the high-level features throughout this video to help save you some time. So we're starting off then with the front-facing camera, and this is a 16 megapixel fixed focus camera, and this can record video at up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. Now, I'm not sure if there's an update along the way, but this is with the launch software, and as you can probably see, there's no electronic image stabilization on the front-facing camera. So hopefully they can add this at a later date, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like as it is out of the box so you can see what the quality is like. Now, with the front-facing camera, it only records video with mono sound, but the rear cameras record in stereo. So again, that's something that they may be adding in a later update, and if they do, I'll be sure to do an updated video so you can see and hear what that's all about. So looking at the highlight control, if you just look behind me, you can see it's clipping out the highlights a bit. You can see on the top of my bald head and with the clouds, it is clipping out the highlights, but it is retaining detail and colour in the trees here. If I kind of move the camera around, you can see that it brings more of the blue sky back into the image, but as I move down, I mean, it's not so bad now when I've adjusted it, but you can see again it's clipping out those clouds behind me so it can expose my face correctly. But we have to remember that the RealMe 7 starts at just £179 here in the UK for the base model. Now, all models get exactly the same photo and video abilities. The only differences are the amount of RAM and internal storage that comes with each device. So whichever one you pick, everything we see in this video is what you will experience if you were to buy this phone. So there's a front-facing camera then, so I'll switch around to the rear lenses now and I'll show you what that's all about. Okay, so moving around to the rear cameras then. And the RealMe 7 can record video on one of two cameras. So this is the main 48 megapixel lens, and this can record video at up to 4K at 30 frames per second and 1080p at 60 frames per second. Now, both the main and ultra-wide cameras have auto HDR, electronic image stabilization, and also record audio in stereo sound. Now, the electronic image stabilization is really good. It's nice and steady, and even when you're recording, you can actually see in real time how the stabilization is being applied. So this is 1080p at 30 frames per second, and I just wanted to show you what the base minimum frame rate and resolution looks like on the RealMe 7. Alright, so moving up to 1080p at 60 frames per second then. Now, as I said, you can only record this using the main 48 megapixel camera. You can't use the ultra-wide lens to record 1080p 60. And you'll probably have noticed that there's no electronic image stabilization at 60 FPS. Again, this might be rectified with a future software update. However, as is with launch software, this is exactly how it is. So I'll just try and keep my steps nice and steady. And hopefully you can see with the movement of this plant here, just give it a quick knock. The 60 FPS allows you to see things with a bit more realism and real true to life movement. Now you can see in the background here that the phone is kind of clipping out the highlights and then bringing them back in. This is something I saw on the Pixel 4a, so it's not exclusive to this type of phone. But general image quality is really decent if we factor in price. And this is also a good test for the autofocus. I'll move to the background. You can see the autofocus is nice and quick. Okay, so max resolution and frame rate then, which is available on the main camera. And this is 4K at 30 frames per second. Now again, just like 1080p 60, there's no image stabilization available at 4K at 30 FPS. So if you are going to use your RealMe 7 as your video device, you may want to think about purchasing some additional stabilization equipment like a gimbal, or you could just use Google Photos perhaps to stabilize the footage later on. Let's just check out autofocus. I think the smooth, glossy shine on the case of the Nord here is perhaps fooling the autofocus. It wouldn't be the first phone I've seen do that, because it can see the clouds in the case, and I think it's trying to focus on those. But autofocus is pretty smooth, I think. It is a little bit slower than other phones, but come on, this is a sub £200 handset, and I think there's probably some kinks to iron out in the software, but as it is, I mean, it's pretty decent. And again, I think it's just getting fooled by the clouds there being reflected in the case, and it's just a little bit slower. So this is the ultra wide angle camera, and this is an 8 megapixel fixed focus camera. It's got 119 degree field of view, and again, this records in stereo sound but maxes out at 1080p at 30 FPS. But it does have electronic image stabilization, as you can see here. And you can see you just get a really expansive field of view from that 119 degree field of view camera. And just panning right here, you can see just how good the stabilization is. It's really, really smooth, and it makes pans like this really simple to do. And if I point up to the cloud here, you can see it just crams in loads. You can see the clouds kind of curling round the edges of the ultra-wide lens, which is a pretty cool effect. So just go for a quick run and show you the stabilization. I find looking at this, the colour reproduction really reminds me of the OnePlus Nord ultra wide angle camera, in that the colours are a little bit funky, quite oversaturated, but some people may love that kind of look, and it's just an observation, not a criticism. Like the main camera, the changes in exposure when I move around this terrain here from light and dark areas is handled really smoothly and very quickly, which is great. Okay, so I'm back on 4K at 30 frames per second, and in this mode it does allow you to switch to one of the 2 digital crops that are available. So you've got a 2x digital crop, and this is very decent looking video, I think. More than acceptable if you just wanted to use it for certain events, just to get a closer view of the action. And then we've also got a 5x crop. Now again, it doesn't look too bad. It does lose some detail, it's a little bit fuzzy around edges, there's some over sharpening going on. But it's just to give you an idea of the level of zoom available. To give you an idea, this is without the zoom, so you can get in pretty far to see objects in the distance, but again, as I said, the image quality isn't ideal, especially on things like trees. You can see there's lots of over sharpening going on, trying to maintain some degree of quality. But it's nice to have the option, and it's not all about perfection. Sometimes you just want to get closer to the subject that you see in the distance, so it's great to have these 2 and 5 times crop options available. Okay, so in addition to the main video modes, we've also got an ultra steady mode. Most smartphones seem to have these days. And this records at 1080p at 30 FPS. And like most phones that have this, it employs the ultra wide camera, crops that in, and it gives you this really solid and smooth looking stabilization. So I'll just go for a run and just show you how steady that it is. And hopefully you can see the benefit of the ultra steady video with that really rubbish canter there. But general image quality, even with the ultra steady mode on, is still pretty decent as well. But you let me know what you think down in the comments. Alright, so that's the end then of the RealMe 7 Ultimate video test. Hope you've enjoyed this look at this really cheap and inexpensive phone. Packs in a lot of features for video and also for photos for the money. And whilst I think there's a little bit of work to do, and they could patch some of the video up with a few updates, namely the super stable mode or ultra steady, it does look like 720p upscaled to 1080 because the detail isn't brilliant and there's a couple of wobbles when you really tax it with some faster movement. But let's bear in mind this is a £179 handset. We can't expect perfection, and I think for the money, a 4K 30 and also 1080p and also using the ultra wide lens, I think it delivers more than good enough video for the money. But you let me know what you think down in the comments of what you think of the video on the RealMe 7. And don't forget, if you're new around here, then please do consider subscribing so you don't miss more videos coming like this on the channel very, very soon. But for now, this has been my ultimate video test for the RealMe 7. My name's Dave West, and I'll catch you guys later.